Good evening. Call to order the Planning Commission meeting of October 26, 2021. And I will read a brief statement before. The city has returned to public meetings pursuant to AB 361, which allows for deviation from the teleconference rules as required by the Ralph M. Brown Act. Residents now have the option to attend the meeting in person or to participate remotely. For those attending in person, the council chambers will be at limited capacity, it's standing room only this evening, to allow for compliance with social distancing recommendations of the state and county health departments. Masks will be required for all individuals in the council chambers. If maximum capacity is met, council chamber, additional attendees will be asked to participate in the meeting via remote option listed below. To participate remotely, residents can live stream the meeting at www.prcity.com/YouTube and call 805-865-7276 to provide public comment via phone. The phone line will open just prior to the start of the meeting and remain open throughout the meeting to ensure the opportunity for the public to comment on each item heard by the Commission. Written public comments can be submitted via email to planning@prcity.com prior to 12 noon on the day of the meeting to be posted as an addendum to the agenda. If submitting written comments in advance of the meeting, please note the agenda item by number or name. Planning Commission's meetings will be live streamed during the meeting and available to play later on YouTube by accessing the following link, www.prcity.com/YouTube. And I'll now do the Pledge of Allegiance. All rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Covarrubias?
Here.
Commissioner Davis?
Here.
Commissioner Neal?
Here.
Commissioner Christensen?
Present.
Commissioner Gibson?
Present.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Present remotely.
Chairperson Kogler? Kogler has announced that he was going to be absent tonight.
And now general public comments regarding matters not on the agenda. Is there any? Yeah. Oh, staff introductions. Thank you. Staff introductions.
Yes, Warren Frace, Community Development Director. With me tonight is Darren Nash, City Planner, Darcy Delgado, our Associate Planner, Lori Wilson, our Assistant Planner, Jessica Ferguson, Ashley Peterson, and Marcy Reynosa, our Administrative Support Staff.
And now, general public comments regarding matters not on the agenda. Do we have any, Jessica?
We do not.
Great, thank you. And then are there any agenda items to be proposed to be tabled or rescheduled?
There are none.
And then we'll start the public hearings, but I'm afraid I must step down because I have a conflict. I'm working with the Erskines on this very project.
So because you're the vice chair, we'll need to select somebody to take your place before you step down.
I have talked to Sherry and she has agreed to take the place on this particular item.
This is Commissioner Covarrubias. I also have a conflict as well, as I've talked to the Erskines about financing numerous times for this project. So I need to step out as well.
I'm Sherry Davis, and I'll take over for a moment for this item. For the record, let it show that Commissioners Neal and Covarrubias have excused themselves and have now left the room. And we will go to the first item under public hearings, Cabernet Lynx RV Park Time Extension 21-03, P16-0009. Can I have a staff report, please?
Apologies to interrupt, Commissioner. It's Isaac Rosen from the City Attorney's Office. So I just wanted to make clear on the record that we do, I believe, have a quorum with the absence of Chairperson Kogler and the conflict of interest for Vice Chair Neal and Covarrubias. If we could just have staff confirm.
All right, thank you.
Yes, we still have 3 in the room.
3 in the room, and we, as I understand, we have Roberta online. So,
Correct.
okay, so we do have a quorum and we can proceed. So,
Yeah.
okay, thank you very much. Staff report, please.
All right, thank you and good evening, members of the commission. I'm Darcy Delgado, the associate planner, and I'll be giving the staff presentation. So what we have tonight is a time extension request for the Lynx golf course project located at 5151 Jardine Road. So this project is located in the northeast portion of the city out by the airport. It's an existing golf course. So the request tonight is to grant a 2-year time extension for the entitlements for plan development 15-004, conditional use permit amendment 94-005, and then their vesting tentative tract map 3088. And so with those entitlements, it would establish a 290 space recreational vehicle resort within the existing golf course, as well as some ancillary site amenities. So the approved site plan includes, as I mentioned, those 290 RV spaces as part of the resort, and was previously approved by City Council. Originally, the map and the development plan and conditional use permit were approved back in June of 2017. And then the tract map was originally set to expire within 2 years. However, the Planning Commission did approve a 1-year time extension in June of 2019, and then a second 1-year time extension was approved in August of 2020. And so based on the dates of June 6th, we have an approved entitlement up to June 6th of 2021. The applicant did submit a request for a 3rd time extension, and this time around, staff is recommending a 2-year time extension to extend the entitlements to June of 2023. And so in the past, we have done 1-year time extensions, but under the Subdivision Map Act and consistent with our zoning code, our zoning code under the municipal code, we can approve 2-year time extensions, and overall they can have up to 6 years total of extensions. So staff has reviewed the project and there are no changes being requested as part of the time extension request. I will note that staff noted that when we had published the staff report, we had not previously included this as a finding. So wanting to let the Planning Commission make amended findings for the time extension should this be approved. And so I'll read what the amended findings would be for CEQA. Approval of a time extension is not subject to the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to section 15358. The activity will not result in a direct or reasonably foreseeable indirect physical change in the environment of the CEQA guidelines, because the extension of issued entitlement approvals has no potential for resulting in physical changes to the environment indirectly or directly or indirectly. And so before you tonight, you have several options. So option 1 would be to approve draft resolution A with the amended findings that I had just read, approving the request for a 2-year time extension for the development plan, the conditional use permit, and tentative tract map, which would grant them an extension to June 6th of 2023. Certainly you could grant a time extension for a shorter period of time, as we have done in the past. We've done 1 year, but you are able to grant up to 2 years at this time. And then you could also amend, modify, or reject the above noted options. Staff does recommend the Planning Commission approve the 2-year time extension. And with that, that concludes my staff presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Darcy. And I'll go to my Planning Commission and see if you have any questions of staff. I'll go to Commissioner Christensen. Do you have any questions of staff? Commissioner Gibson.
Yes, thank you. Could you refresh my memory as to the rules for the length of time from the initial approval of a site, and then also how many extensions are allowed?
Sure. So, so the initial project gets the development plan, the map, and the CUP amendment would get an initial 2 years for from 2017 to 2019, and then from there you can get up to 6 years of time extensions. Historically, we've presented anytime we have a map, we've done 1 year at a time, and then the additional entitlements take on that 1 year as well. But we have noticed that it might be more efficient to grant 2 years since we are able to do that. And so that is why this time we're seeing a 2-year time extension. If approved tonight and if the project was not moving forward with construction permits, they would still have another 2 years of requesting another extension.
Okay, so my understanding, Darcy, just to be clear, is that they have 6 years from the time of once the first 2 years is over. So it has nothing to do with the number of extensions. It's just strictly a tolling of the 6 years. Is that correct?
Right, per the subdivision map.
Okay. All right. Just curious, on page 14, there was a letter dated May 29, 2021, that indicated they're waiting a PG&E inspection, et cetera. But this obviously is, almost 5 months old. Could you give us an update of what the current status of the project is?
Sure. So in addition to waiting on PG&E, the applicant is working with city staff on satisfying some environmental mitigation. So they do have to satisfy KIT-FOX mitigation. So I'm working with them directly on that. And with Fish and Wildlife, that has taken quite some time. And so even still, we're waiting for approval from Fish and Wildlife. So, the request for the extension would be valid for other reasons in addition to the one in their letter.
Okay, perfect. That's all my questions.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Jorgensen, do you have any questions of staff?
I do not.
Okay, Darcy, I just have one quick one, and I think it was this way last time it came forward. The letter actually requests 1 year, but staff is recommending 2, and that's just because it's more efficient?
It's more efficient. These time extensions sneak up, every year when we do them at 1 year at a time. And it does, when things are, we notice that Fish and Wildlife might be taking a while, or it seems to be more efficient for both staff's time and then as well as the applicant.
Okay, thank you so much. I just wanted to clarify that. All right, at this time, I'd like to open up the public hearing. And if there is the applicant present, anyone who would like to speak on behalf of the project? Jessica, do we have anyone online?
No, we do not.
Okay. Would anyone like to come forward with any comments on this project? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and come back to the commission for any discussion on this matter. I don't hear anything coming, so I guess I can call for a vote. Is that correct? Yes, Ty.
I have one
Sure.
question. Sorry. It mentions in the letter too that the impact fees were paid, or they were going to pay them in June. I just was curious if that was something they did.
So I know that we do update our development impact fees for the fiscal year, and so it is possible that they were paid. I'm not sure, but we do let applicants know if they have the ability to pay them. So that goes through the building department to pay them before fees go up. I'm not sure if this particular project, I'd have to reread the letter, but if they were maybe not able to pay for a certain reason, but that would have been maybe a benefit for them if they could have paid a little early.
Okay, so it's not something that was a requirement for
No,
them.
not at all.
I didn't think so. Okay, cool. Thanks for the clarification. Appreciate it.
All right. Any other questions? Then I will call
Madam
for-
Chair, I move to approve draft resolution A, attachment 5, approving the request for a 2-year time extension for PD 15-004, CUP 94-005, amendment and DTTM 3088 to June 6, 2023.
I move to second that.
Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Gibson and a second from Commissioner Christensen. And that did include the recommended findings in your motion. Is that correct? Just for clarification for me.
Yes, just for clarification, I would include the recommended findings from staff.
Okay. All right, then I'll call for the vote.
Commissioner Gibson.
Aye.
Commissioner Christensen.
Aye.
Commissioner Jorgensen.
Aye.
Commissioner Davis.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0 with Covarrubias and Neal having a conflict of interest and abstaining.
All right, at this time, if someone could, thank you, bring in Commissioners Covarrubias and Commissioner Neal, who can now take over the hearing. So let the record show they're now back in the council chambers.
Thank you. And now we move on to item number 2 on the agenda. 510 30th Street Multifamily Residential Setback Variance 21-02 P21-006, applicant Robert Phillips. A request to reduce the primary setback from 15 feet to 12 feet in relation to a proposal for a new 3-unit multifamily residential project. This request would aid in preserving an existing oak tree. Staff?
Yes, thank you. This is Darcy again. I'll be giving the staff presentation. So this is a variance request, 21-02. The location is 510 30th Street, which is shown on the screen with the site location map at the corner of 30th and Oak. So the request is to reduce the street setback on Oak Street from 15 feet to 12 feet, and this is in relation to the new multifamily residential project with the specific request to aid in preserving an existing 44-inch oak tree. So there are 2 buildings situated on the site plan. The 2-unit building, which is units A and B, has frontage along both 30th and Oak Street, and that building does conform to the required setbacks from each street. The single unit building, which is unit C, sits in the back half of the lot and has frontage along Oak Street only. So unit C was originally designed to meet the minimum setback from Oak Street. So this project went to the Development Review Committee and we were able to, the project was approved. However, due to its proximity to the 44-inch diameter Valley Oak Tree, the project arborist has determined that the best option is for the owner to shift unit C 3 feet closer to Oak Street. So that would, to help reduce impacts to the tree's critical root zone. So this change would result in a 12-foot setback when 15 feet would otherwise be required. And so on the site plan, I've kind of called everything out, and as you can see, unit C reflects the 12-foot setback, and then units A and B has 15 feet from Oak Street. The arborist is also recommending use of porous concrete or porous pavers for the parking spaces in the parking lot under or within the critical root zone. So here are the street-facing elevations for each of the buildings. So you have unit C, which faces east along Oak Street. So that's the unit that would shift 3 feet closer to Oak. And then units A and B, so that's facing north along 30th Street. And that one would have a 12-foot setback from 30th Street. Actually, sorry, let me go back one more time. So the architecture, as I mentioned, this originally went through the Development Review Committee for approval. So the architecture was already previously reviewed and approved, and it does consist of stucco siding. There's composition tile roofing, and then they show recessed windows and exposed wood beams and rafters. So in general, in terms of neighborhood compatibility, the project is surrounded by a mixture of single-family and multifamily dwellings. Most of the development in the area predates the development standards for the Uptown Town Center specific plan, which is what we're working under as far as development standards. So it's not uncommon for the dwellings in this area to be set back between 10 to 20 feet from a street, depending on whether it is the side yard or a front yard. So these photos show both the project site and then the adjacent lot to the west. And so it's kind of hard to see, but I have called out on the adjacent lot to the west. You can see that there's an approximate 8 to 10 foot setback for this from Vine Street for the property line along Vine Street. So that would be their street side yard. So given the context of needing to accommodate the existing oak tree just on the project site, a reduced setback of 12 feet for Unit C is reasonable for this location, and it would blend in with the existing development pattern, especially the lot just immediately to the west. So the Planning Commission has several options to take and taking action tonight. So option 1 would be to approve draft resolution A, approving the variance, which would allow a 12-foot setback from Oak Street for Unit C. Certainly, you could amend the above listed action. You could also refer it back to staff or DRC for additional analysis if for some reason you felt that maybe the applicant could look into another option. And then lastly, you could make findings to deny the application. Staff does recommend that the Planning Commission approve the project by adopting draft resolution A. So this would allow that 12-foot setback from Oak Street specific to Unit C, and then it would thereby reduce those impacts to the oak tree. We do have the arborist available to answer any questions. I believe he's on the line tonight, and we also have the architect available to help answer any questions on the project. And with that, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Darcy. Any questions of staff from the Planning Commission? Roberta, do you have any questions?
I do not.
So with that, I will open it up to public comment. Is there anybody here that would like to comment on the project?
Commissioners, Nick Gilman, the architect, the owner and I were kind of neutral. This wasn't something we sponsored. It was at the request of the arborist, and I think his comments are what are appropriate in this case.
Is there somebody online that would like to speak?
We do have the arborist online. Corey, if you'd like to say anything.
Yes, I think it's critical with the over excavation for Unit C that we move Unit C out by 3 feet. I think any roots that can be saved in the critical root zone, really we need to make an effort to do that.
Great, thank you very much. Any further comment, public comment, Jessica?
No, we don't have any further comments.
Great, so I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. Do any of the commissioners have questions on this item? Roberta? Commissioner Jorgensen? Sorry.
No,
Great.
thank you.
Great, with that, is there a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion. This is Commissioner Davis. I move that we approve draft resolution A, attachment 4, approving variance 21-02, allowing a 12-foot setback from Oak Street, thereby reducing the impacts to the oak tree.
I'll second the motion.
Sorry, well, that was you, Field?
Commissioner Gibson.
So we have a motion and a second. We have a motion by Commissioner Davis and a second by Commissioner Gibson. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
Commissioner Gibson?
Aye.
Commissioner Christensen?
Aye.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Aye.
Commissioner Neal?
Aye.
Commissioner Covarrubias?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
So now we're moving on to item number 3. 2045 Oak Street side parking setback variance 21-03 P210095. Applicant is Macy Umbertus. It's a request to reduce the street side parking setbacks from 25 feet to 5 feet in relation to the proposal to construct a new 1,820 square foot single family residence with an attached 2-car garage. We'll go to staff comment or staff report, please.
Lori, are you online?
Thank you. Yes, I'm online. Good evening, everybody. This is Lori Wilson, Assistant Planner, and I'll be taking us through this last item tonight. As stated, this is a variance request for 2045 Oak Street. The lot, as you see there highlighted in red, is just on the corner of 21st and Oak to the west of Smart and Final. In front of you right now, you have a photo of what's existing currently on the site. There's currently a residence with a carport. And then behind the fence that you can see there is a detached garage. The applicant does have approval from the building department to demolish those structures. So the request before you tonight is in relation to the new proposed home and two-car attached garage that they will be building on the site. And the request is to reduce the street side parking setback, so off of 21st Street, from 25 feet to 5 feet. This is the proposed site plan for the new residence and new two-car attached garage. DRC did review this site plan a few weeks back in relation to a modification request that was allowing them to continue using the access off of 21st Street. And at that point in time, the garage was shown at a 12-foot setback, which left some room for concern. There was concern over the fact that cars would be able to park in the driveway and potentially hang over into the right-of-way. Because this lot, though, is not providing access off of the alley, and they were given approval to use that 21st Street access, the zoning code actually requires that that garage be set back 25 feet. If they were to do that, though, it would push the garage basically right up to the trunk of the oak tree that you see kind of right there in the center of the lot and cause a significant impact to that oak tree. So we are here tonight with this request that it be set back 5 feet, which would both reduce impacts to that oak tree and then also not allow for people to park their cars in that driveway. So it would solve the concern of cars being parked in the right of way. These are the elevations for the proposed Spanish architecture style residence. They're proposing a stucco siding with Spanish tile roof material. The elevation that you see on the top left, the east elevation, is the primary entrance to the home off of Oak Street. And then down below that, the north elevation is what's facing 21st Street. They offer a secondary entrance. And then you see the proposed garage there. As far as neighborhood compatibility, as I mentioned, there is a detached garage on the site right now. The applicant does intend, they do have future plans to do a detached ADU and garage at in the rear portion of the lot. And they would be maintaining that existing footprint for that garage, which is currently set back roughly 5 feet. So it would be consistent with the remainder of the lot. There are several other homes surrounding this residence on 21st Street that also have their access facing 21st. And then directly across the way, the photo that you see in the bottom right, that white home there is directly across the street. Their garage also has approximately a 5 foot setback. So it is consistent, with the rest of the homes on the street here. So alternatives, of course, would be that they could meet that 25 foot setback for the garage. It would result in a significant impact to the oak tree, potentially redesign the proposed house plans. The staff is recommending approval of the reduced setback to allow for construction of this residence as designed. I believe the last slide is just the options for the commission tonight, which would be to approve draft resolution A, approving variance 2103, which would reduce the side street parking setback to 5 feet. Amend the above listed action. I certainly refer back to staff or the DRC for additional analysis, or make findings to deny the application. And with that, I will go ahead and pass it over to the commission for questions. I believe we do have the applicant on the line as well to help with any questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Lori. Commissioners, any questions this evening?
Yes, I have one question. Just clarification, Lori. Reading the arborist report, there's a number of recommendations in it. Who monitors that? Is that something that we monitor? The city staff monitors to make sure all the suggested recommendations are met?
Do you mean during construction?
Yeah, so the arborist is very specific in some of the things that he's recommending in his report. And I think they're all great recommendations. I'm just curious, who monitors that to make sure that all of the things that he's recommending, if we approve this, are, that they're met?
Yes, that would be up to the staff to monitor. So once they are given their building permit, we would monitor along with the arborist to ensure that that's getting taken care of.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Gibson.
Thank you. I was actually on DRC when this came before us, and again, as stated, the request was to modify the 25-foot back to 12 feet, and the DRC was pretty adamant not to go along with that. So I was surprised that this came back, kind of moving in the opposite direction that DRC had suggested. So I'm just curious, maybe you could shed some light on that, Lori. Is that there was some conversation from staff, for example, that there's other ways of footings or things that could be done with the garage, for example, that wouldn't impact the oak tree, and various suggestions. How is it that we went from that to actually moving in the opposite direction from DRC's direction?
So that was a suggestion that staff had thought that perhaps there was, special construction measures that could be taken that would allow for that garage to meet the 25-foot setback. After further discussions, though, with the arborist, they indicated that just the impact that it would basically move the garage right up to the trunk of the tree, pretty much meeting that 25-foot setback, that it would have such a significant impact to the tree. And we can check to see if he's on the line to assist with that question as well. But staff felt that in order to preserve that oak tree and the health of it, that we could do that with moving it to the 5-foot setback. So it does two things. It prevents people from parking in the right of way there, and then also preserves the oak tree. So I think it came from conversations with the arborist and just realizing he indicated that there really wasn't any sort of special construction measures that could be taken to prevent what that impact was going to be to the oak tree.
Okay, so in follow up on page 35, I highlighted that by assuming we allowed this, that moving it the opposite direction, actually closer to the street, that reduces the negative impact of the feeder roots by a couple percentage points. So the arborist is estimating that that's 3% better for the tree. Am I understanding that correctly?
That is correct. That initial calculation, though, was based off of the garage being set back 12 feet, not the full 25 feet. So it reduced it from, I believe it was 20 to 17, from the 12-foot setback to the 5-foot setback. So I don't have an exact percentage impact of what it would be if it met the 25-foot impact or setback. Okay,
and then assuming that the commission was willing to do this, and you indicated there was, even though it'd be within 5 feet of the only have a 5-foot setback, who would actually enforce that driveway for not being used? And again, just as a reminder that the DRC's concern was that reducing it to 12 feet would cause that pedestrian pathway to be blocked. So who would enforce somebody not being able to use that driveway?
I believe ultimately it falls back on the city's code enforcement department to ensure that people are not parking in the city right of way. We have had complaints over the years of people parking, in the similar 5-foot type of a setback and along the alley and blocking areas of that nature. And code enforcement has been able to assist with those.
So again, I mean, the issue was that most cars are at least 12 feet long, and the concern, particularly because it's in a fairly high commercial area, being, just a short distance from a commercial shopping center, is that we did not want the pedestrian walkway blocked, and that was the concern. So I'm just trying to grasp it, understanding. So you open the door of the driveway and you pull out a couple of feet and you're into the pedestrian walkway. So how is that not going to be an issue?
Commissioner Gibson, this is Darren Nash, City Planner. Having a 5-foot setback reduces the problem significantly less than the 12-foot setback. With the 5 feet, it generally precludes people trying to park in front of the garage door. You're absolutely correct. There's just not room in front of that door with 5 feet to park and not cover the sidewalk. With a 12-foot setback, it's even worse because that gives the opportunity for at least, people to think that, hey, there's plenty of room for me to park, but we know that 12 feet isn't enough. So as Lori mentioned, we have 5-foot setbacks to garage doors, and it works much better than allowing a 10 or 12 or something less than 20 as the code requires. So that's the 5 feet staff feels would be a better situation for this garage door rather than the 12. Obviously, if you can meet at least 20 and give yourself enough room to park completely out, that's the intent of the setbacks. That is the intent of the 25 feet. But the code also allows the ability for the commission to reduce setbacks in order to help preserve the tree, and that's what's being looked at here. When this project went to the DRC, the request was generally access from 21st Street. That was what really the question was, is this site plan with this access off of 21st Street, does that seem reasonable, or should we be telling the applicant they need to redesign and access the garage from the alley? That was the main question from the DRC. We really didn't get into the setbacks until we had more information from the arborist. We talked to the architect to try and get at 25 feet at a staff level working with the project team. And it really came down to, and this is a pretty nice large oak, to come to the DRC or come to the Planning Commission asking for a variance, similar to the last item that the commission reviewed. So the 5 foot generally does preclude people from parking there. If it does become an issue, then it does become a code enforcement issue, but it's much less than if it was a 12 foot.
But Darren, just to be clear, what's really causing this is the design, isn't it not? I mean, there is room on this site that a garage access could be done, or the house could be reoriented, or it could be a 2-story house, or it could be a variety of things where the design, where we wouldn't have any of those issues. Isn't that correct?
That's correct, and that's something that the commission could choose one of the other alternatives to redesign the project.
All right, thank you. That's all my questions.
Any other questions? Commissioner Jorgen? Oh, Commissioner Christensen? Go ahead.
I just had a couple, this is Commissioner Christensen. I had a couple questions for staff. One of the questions I kind of missed when I was on DRC with this was the, under the definition, corner lots that are providing alley access can orient garages towards the street. So in this case, is this lot not able to provide alley access, or is it because it doesn't have alley access currently designed into the plan?
This particular, this is Darren. So the applicants are proposing this layout. They're requesting the ability to have access to this garage off 21st Street, similar to how the previous carport, previous driveway was accessed. Staff worked with the applicant, worked with the development standards of the Uptown Town Center plan, and indicated that it might be better to access the garage from the alley. I think they attempted to do that a few times, but one of the constraints is the oak tree. The other constraint is that they would like to keep the garage that is existing towards the alley to do a future accessory dwelling unit. So with the existing placement of the existing garage, detached garage, and with the oak is what's necessitating or showing this plan that's before you.
Is this, is this under, has this been submitted for a lot split?
No.
Okay. Okay, I think there was, can you go to a photo of what it looks like now, just from the street view, looking in at that location? Do we have that? Okay, there. I drove by there today, but I needed to refresh my memory. All right, I think I don't have any other questions for staff at this time.
Commissioner Jorgensen, do you have any questions of staff?
I do have a question. For just clarification on the future ADU, I thought I understood this until I just heard this conversation. So the plan indicates on the future ADU, garage to be modified for ADU under separate permit, and then future ADU addition. So I'm not clear. Is the existing garage going to be part of the ADU building as habitable space? Is that what they're saying?
They do actually intend to keep it a garage parking space for the ADU, but they also intend to remodel it and make it consistent with the architectural style of the ADU that will also match the new home going onto the lot, but it will be used for parking.
Okay, but you're saying that currently it's accessed from the alley, is that correct?
No, actually, it is currently accessed off of 21st Street. There's a second approach to that garage.
Okay, that was where I was getting confused when I thought I was hearing it was currently approached from the alley. Okay, all right, thank you. That answers my question.
Any further questions, Commissioner Jorgensen?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Commissioner Davis, do you have any questions?
I do. I just, Lori, we have 21st and 12th Street, both were traffic calming design streets in our town, pretty recently designed that way. Are you aware of any enforcement issues with some of the homes? I don't know if they have 5-foot setbacks, but are you aware of any enforcement issues because of the design of those two streets?
Not that I'm aware of. I do see them, come through from code enforcement asking for planning's assistance with them, and I have not seen any parking. I believe that's probably what you're asking about, parking code enforcement issues on those streets.
Yeah, should we do five? Yeah. Should
right.
we do that?
Yeah. No, not that I'm aware of, and it does appear to be, consistent with other residences along the street there. How they're also accessing off of 21st and have some of them also have the relatively small setback.
And could you go to, or you can stay on that slide. It kind of helps me if I look at what's there existing. Would the 5-foot setback mean the building would come right up to the sidewalk, basically?
So the garage would be set back 5 feet approximately from the edge of the sidewalk. So you would have the sidewalk and then
the 5 feet.
5 feet off of that.
Yes. And I'm just trying to think if this in any way, if it is used as access, if there's any issues with the bicycle path right there. Can you show me the bicycle lane in there? I'm just thinking of pedestrian-friendly circulation. So it would impact the bicycle lane there.
You mean if a car was to try to park in a 5-foot space?
Mhm.
Possibly. I feel that when people do try to, park in places they're not supposed to of that nature, they tend to park parallel and try to get the car all the way up on there. But it is going to be wider than.
Okay, yeah, I was
5
just thinking
feet.
of both sidewalk friendly and bicycle friendly. That's all I have. Thanks, Lori.
Thank you.
Great. So now I will open the public comment. And is there a representative from the applicant that would like to speak? Please state your name and your address. Go ahead and use them. Thank you.
And I just wanted to let you guys know we've been working really hard on this project to pretty much beautify this corner and make it something really nice. And it's been a little bit challenging trying to, fit within all of the setbacks. But ultimately, if we did take the driveway from the alley, it would basically go through the entire yard, and even then we would have an issue with the oak tree. As you can see in that photo, the oak tree is giant, and pretty much any way you slice it, it's going to impact that tree probably more significantly if we brought the driveway through the alley, because then the garage would be, flipped around to accommodate where the house site is. So we're trying to make this as user-friendly as possible, beautify the corner there, and also preserve this beautiful oak tree. The 21st Street access that you see there, that driveway, and all that nice curb and gutter, the city spent obviously a good amount of money putting it in, and we just would like to still be able to utilize what's already been existing. The carport that is there, it's probably, I would say, maybe a 10-foot setback, so that's been there that way. So we're doing whatever we can to try to reduce that impact, but also make it visually appealing and save that tree. Happy to answer any questions also.
Commissioner? Seeing no questions, thank you. Thank you very much. Is there anybody else, Jessica, that would like to comment on this?
We do not have any other commenters.
Great, thank you. And with that, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. And any further questions or discussion from the commission? Commissioner Gibson?
Yeah, so to be clear, when we were on DRC, there was actually two issues. One was the continued use of the access from 21st Street, and the DRC actually approved that. So that wasn't the issue. I don't think we felt that, as was pointed out, there is an existing access on 21st Street, and the DRC had no issues with continuing to allow that to happen. But we did have a strong opposition to reducing the setback to what was the 12, and frankly, I just don't see this working. If we pass this, we're literally going to then rely upon code enforcement or police officers or somebody going to have to possibly fix this. And I really do believe that it's because of the design of the house. I'm not an architect, but I'm looking here and I could come up with 2 or 3 ways of putting in a garage would have minimal or no impact on the oak tree, reorientating the house, building a 2-story house, putting the garage underneath. There's a variety of ways of doing this. I think it strictly has to do with the design. And I just don't really want to continue down setting a precedent or continuing to design problems, particularly that this is not really strictly in a residential area. It is literally a stone's throw from a commercial shopping center on a major arterial, meaning Spring Street. And that area is turning more and more commercial with more and more pedestrian. So I'm strongly opposed to doing this. I really think that somebody needs to come up with a design that allows them to have a garage either reorientated the other direction or tucked underneath the house or something, so that we don't rely on code enforcement from having to go fix a potential problem. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the commission?
I have a comment. This is Commissioner Jorgensen. I wasn't at DRC, so I did not hear that conversation or the concerns expressed, and I respect all of those. And I do agree completely with Commissioner Gibson that this is a reflection of design. It could be a two-story house, etc., and preserve the oak tree, and completely agree. However, I don't agree that having a significant driveway presence in this sort of edge of commercial, residential transitioning to commercial area is a visual, an aesthetic advantage or a community advantage. I've seen so many instances in developments that are on somewhat busy streets or are on sort of an edge, residential edge like this, that have very limited driveways. And it seems more appropriate. This is not it's not a type of residential community. It's not R1, it's not zoned R1, it's not on a purely residential street. I actually would prefer that there not be the opportunity to have cars parked in the driveway and stuff piled in the driveway, or, you know, whatever stored in the driveway or whatever could happen at that. So because of the reason being for the oak, I do support this plan. I would not want this to be precedent setting without there being a reason such as an oak tree. I mean, I would not want to have future applicants come back and say, well, we want it because it happened down the street. There's a reason for this, but in my opinion, at this location, it's actually advantageous.
Commissioner Christensen?
Yeah, I had a question. Is the arborist on the line on this one? Is the arborist present? Yeah. Yeah, I know. I mean, that I was up there today, but that's been there for a while. So the percentage, I was just curious, the percentage wise, maybe staff, and I should have asked this sooner. Maybe Darren, did you know if there was what the percentage was before, like at a 20 or 25 foot setback? Do we even know what that would have been?
I think Lori mentioned earlier that the information we have was based on the previous site plan that showed the 12. But I think that, you know, just in general, anytime you're working within the, the critical root zone, however, in this case, more of the drip line, special techniques need to be considered when building within that. Even at the 5 foot setback, we'll want to have the arborist monitor the situation. But generally, as you get closer to the trunk, there's more of the ability to run into a more significant size root. But I apologize, I don't know the percentage of at the 25%, but I'm sure it's quite higher.
Okay. I mean, I definitely understand Commissioner Gibson's concern. I have to say that if the median there to me wasn't there, I've driven the street many times, that I think I would probably have to go along with Commissioner Gibson entirely. But I do agree with Commissioner Jorgensen. I'm not a big fan of it coming off of that street, but I think that it's a necessity that needs to take place in this case. Other than that, I don't really have any other questions or comments at this time. Thank you.
Any other commissioners? So I just would like to say I like this project. I think the 5 foot setback for the garage does what staff thinks it will do. And by minimizing somebody's thinking that they can park in the driveway, I think that 5 foot kind of definitely says no parking in that driveway. So I think the scale is right for the neighborhood. I think it's a very nice plan, and I will be supportive of this evening. So is there a motion for this particular item?
I'll be happy to motion. I resolve that we adopt Resolution A, approving variance 21-03, allowing a 5-foot street side parking setback for the 2-car garage based on the setback modification, reducing the impacts to the 47-inch live oak tree.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second, a motion by Commissioner Covarrubias and a second by Commissioner Davis. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Covarrubias.
Aye.
Commissioner Davis.
Aye.
Commissioner Christensen.
Aye.
Commissioner Gibson.
No.
Commissioner Jorgensen.
Aye.
Vice Chairperson Neal.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-1.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. And I believe our next item on the agenda is discussion items. So I seem to have misplaced my agenda. Okay.
Got it?
Yes. So Warren, any discussion items this evening?
There are no discussion items.
Cool. And the consent calendar. The Development Review Committee meetings for September 20th, 2021, September 27th, 2021, October 11th, 2021, and the Planning Commission minutes for October 12th, 2021. Any comments on those? Commissioner Gibson.
Yeah, I'd like to get clarification on, let me see what item this is. This is October 12th, and it'd be item number G1 on page 63. Just a clarification from my recollection in regards to the action. It identified the specific wording. It said any further parking plan would need to go before the Planning Commission. And my understanding is that there actually is a required parking plan that would need to go before the Planning Commission. And it just, I was wondering if that really wouldn't be more appropriate language. My understanding is there was a compromise that was made, and we said that we would have moved the project forward as long as the required parking plan came before, right? Not any further, as if there might not be one, right?
This is Commissioner Covarrubias. I was on that DRC, and I think that you are right, Commissioner Gibson. That was a statement that was made.
Yeah, I think that would make sense to actually clarify that.
I think you were the maker of the motion.
Yeah, and I'm glad you pointed it out because I didn't catch that. But yeah, I think it's a good point because it is a required.
It's a required parking plan.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I would agree.
So is there a motion to approve the minutes with the adjustment to the October 12th, 2021?
With that, I will go ahead and move to approve the DRC minutes for the September 20th, 2021, September 27th, 2021, October 11th, 2021, and the Planning Commission minutes for October 12th, 2021, with that notation and clarification of the parking plan on that item.
Great. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Great. So we have a motion by Commissioner Gibson and a second by Commissioner Christensen. Roll call vote, please.
Just to clarify before the vote, we're changing the word further to required.
The required parking plan.
Very good. Okay. Who was the first and the second on that?
Gibson and Christensen.
Commissioner Gibson?
Aye.
Commissioner Christensen?
Aye.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Aye.
Commissioner Covarrubias?
Aye.
Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
Vice Chair Neal?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Great. Moving on to other reports, the Housing Constraints Advisory Committee Zoning Code Update Report. I have to say I missed that meeting, so be interested in the update.
Last week, the Housing Constraints Committee did meet. They received a report from our consultant, MIG, that's preparing the zoning code update. So much like we took testimony from the Planning Commission and the stakeholder groups about changes potentially to the code, the Housing Constraints Committee went through a very similar exercise. So that continues to help us move along with the zoning code update. They also looked into the idea of trying to identify additional sites within the city for rental housing, specifically apartment projects, beyond what's currently contained in the zoning code or the housing element. So I think the question is how aggressive the city should be in terms of looking for additional sites. The direction from the Housing Constraints Committee was that the city should be fairly aggressive in terms of trying to identify sites for additional rental apartment sites within the city limits. So that's useful information. We're going to do some additional analysis of potential sites that may require zoning code changes to make them available for apartment development. And we'll be reporting back to the Housing Constraints Committee. If that turns into any specific recommendations, obviously that comes back through the Planning Commission and then the City Council before any changes would be made. And the other thing on housing, just to keep in mind, tomorrow at noon, we do have the groundbreaking for the Red Tail Apartments. So that's that 200-unit rental apartment project next to Food for Less up on Creston Road. So that's a significant housing project, one of the biggest projects we've probably done in 20 years around here for rental housing. So we're definitely encouraging the council, the commission, and the Housing Constraints Committee to attend if they're available.
Great, thank you. Railroad Street Ad Hoc Committee report.
Yeah, real quick on that. The Railroad Street Ad Hoc Committees met. They have actually formulated a recommendation to the Planning Commission on some changes and standards for the Railroad Street streetscape. Staff's putting that together. We do expect that to be on your next agenda. And then potentially the commission may take direction to forward that on to City Council for formal adoption.
Great, thank you. And then the development.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
All right, thank you. Warren, could you clarify, we had an item come before DRC, I was filling in for Rob, that I just expressed, I didn't know what the direction was of the Railroad Street, and we had a project right in the middle of that area. Could we get more of like a flavor, pending some sort of formalized drafting of where the Railroad Street Ad Hoc Committee is recommending, and I guess maybe be more specific, and feel free to jump in or ask questions, is we weren't sure if we were just talking streetscape or architectural styles or what the thought process was, how extensive that the design was going to be. Can you kind of maybe flesh out, put a little more?
Yeah, so the intent of the ad hoc committee was to look at the streetscape, which is the public right-of-way. So basically the sidewalk, curb gutter, furniture, lighting, that sort of thing, but nothing beyond that specifically. We currently do have codes or design guidelines within the Uptown plan for the building. So it wasn't necessarily intended to affect building design. It was really about the public right-of-way.
No, that was an issue in our recent DRC, and I don't know when that'll be coming back. So I think it'll be nice. The sooner we can get that report at Planning Commission, the better.
Yeah, we understand that was a little confusing at DRC, so staff's working on getting all that straightened out for you.
Great, thank you. And then the Development Review Committee rotation schedule. We're on a new schedule, rotation. November starts on Monday, so it's Jorgensen, Kogler, and Davis. So with that, the Planning Commission comments. I'll start with Commissioner Jorgensen. Do you have any comments?
I do not. Thank you.
Commissioner Christensen, any comments?
I have none, thank you.
Commissioner Gibson, comments?
Yeah, just one. In light of some of the projects that have come before us, we seem like we have this ongoing conversation about everything in the downtown corridor having to do with parking. Is it possible, I guess two-part, is it possible we can get maybe some more of an idea of what the plan, if the city has one, moving forward for parking? The reason I ask is because we're asked to be making decisions knowing that people are opting in some cases to pay in lieu fees, or that we know that the projects are not building the parking sufficient even for their own impacts. I'm just curious to know moving forward as we're working on this, assuming that everybody has the same feeling as I do, that we're trying to keep on building the commercial center of town, what the plan is for that. And I guess the second part of the question is, who's actually responsible, and what would the nexus be if at some point somebody said, look, we're continuing to build hotels, restaurants, what have you, and we have an issue? Would that be coming from the city council, or is that something that the planning commission and staff would be working on, or who's responsible typically for starting to work on that type of a project?
So in terms of the policy of how we're going to park in the downtown, council sets policy. And currently that's reflected in both the zoning code, our downtown parking program, and the uptown specific plan. So any changes to those can be recommended by either staff or the planning commission, but ultimately the city council sets the policy, and until they change the policy, it is the policy that we're working under. I do think if you want to ask for a report on kind of the downtown parking programs, that probably would be good. So, by consensus, if I get that direction, we can agendize that. And maybe that's a first starting point. If the planning commission feels, that there may be a need to consider changes, you could definitely formulate a recommendation to the city council to make them aware of your concerns.
Warren, would be that, just again, speaking for myself, I think it would be prudent to at least have some sort of an idea of a path forward, especially as more and more projects come through, and we know that we're already deficient. What does that look like, and maybe have an idea as we're approving projects and developing the downtown, how are we going to resolve this?
Okay. Well, let's start with a report from kind of the parking division and the parking commission, because we actually have a commission for downtown parking, and we'll just kind of take it from there.
I would echo that. I think that's a great idea. And I agree with you. I was kind of wondering too what the plan is. What's the long-term plan? So I would echo his comments.
Very well.
Everybody else interested in such a report?
Parking is important, as you know from last, so I have it
Great.
helpful for us as decision makers.
Absolutely. And if there is an ad hoc committee formed or something, I'll just say now I'd be very interested in being part of that.
Great. Well, thank you. Let's see. Commissioner Davis, any comment?
No, I don't.
Commissioner Covarrubias?
No further comments. Thank you.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
No, no comments.
Did I already ask her?
think,
All right. All right. And then no comments from me. Any staff comments this evening?
Yeah, a couple updates for you. You'll recall the Gateway Annexation Project. That's that big hotel resort project down on South Vine Street and 46 West. The council approved that on a planning commission recommendation over a year ago. We've been working with the county to get that ready for a LAFCO hearing. It appears that we're going to have that on the LAFCO agenda in November. If that's approved by LAFCO, then that'll actually initiate annexation of that project into the city, and then the city can start working with the applicant on the actual development proposal there. So that's good news. The boys' school reuse project, also known as the Landing, We're working on the EIR right now. There's some traffic issues that still have to be resolved on that. We're hoping to have an EIR out for public review before the end of the year and get that to hearings with the commission and council early next year. The city's in the process right now of recruiting for an assistant city manager. It looks like we'll probably be announcing something in November in terms of a appointment to that position. So that's good news for the city. Short-term rentals, we provided the city council with their second annual short-term rental report. You'll recall that the short-term rental ordinance has a 3-year time frame. It sunsets next year, which means it expires unless it's extended, is part of the zoning ordinance. So any extensions will require commission recommendations to council. The council did direct staff to start the process to extend that ordinance. So we're going to be starting some work on that and getting that ready for a commission hearing in the near future. Senate Bill 9, you got the briefing on that. That has to do with the urban lot splits by rights in single-family areas. So the city attorney is working on a memo on that. We do expect that we'll probably have some interim recommendations on zoning code changes that will be coming to the Planning Commission in the near future. Parklets, the temporary emergency parklet program we have for the downtown restaurants officially ends on November 1st, but the city manager is granting extensions. Most of them have applied for extensions. We do expect that a handful will be coming out early next week. The remaining ones will be allowed to stay in place until January 31st. On January 31st, all the parklets will go away. The council would like to review a permanent parklet program, but that'll be a separate work scope next year, and the Planning Commission will be involved with that as that moves forward. And that concludes staff's report.
Great. I think that does it for this evening. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I second that.
And I think it's good to go. Thank you very much.
Good deal.
Thank you.